in a galaxy not far away, but right here on Earth. There were men who could walk on water, vanish into thin air, and even return from the dead. They weren't warriors in robes. They didn't carry lightsabers, but they mastered a power so ancient, so precise, it blurred the line between myth and reality. A power known across traditions as Sigil, but you might know it as the Force. Today, we're counting down 5 real human beings throughout history who mirrored the Jedi in every way, from levitation and mind control to immortality. And if you think that sounds impossible, wait until you meet the man who never died. Who were they? How did they gain these abilities to heal with a touch, move through time, or leave their bodies behind entirely? Why haven't we heard their names in history class or seen their faces in documentaries? And the question that matters most, is it possible to unlock these powers yourself? These weren't fantasy characters or religious symbols. These were real people, witnessed, written about, and followed by thousands. Some vanished into caves, others appeared in dreams. All of them walked paths that defied logic but left clues behind. We spent weeks tracing their stories through ancient scrolls, hidden teachings, and first-hand accounts passed down for generations. And if even one of them was telling the truth, then we've barely scratched the surface of what the human mind and spirit can do. This monk had a real-life Anakin Skywalker moment. He killed 35 people at once using only his mind, and spent the rest of his life making up for it. Gungthang, Western Tibet. The year is 1052. Milarepa is born into a wealthy family with land, livestock, and status. Then his father dies. His uncle and aunt take everything. Milarepa, his mother and sister, are treated like slaves, beaten, starved, publicly humiliated. His mother pushes him to get revenge. She sends him to learn black magic. Not myths, actual sorcery passed through hidden lineages. Milarepa obeys and waits for the right moment. At a wedding hosted by the same relatives, he chants a spell from far away. A storm crashes down. Lightning hits. The house collapses. 35 people are killed. It worked, but the feeling that followed wasn't power. It was regret. Like Anakin Skywalker, Milarepa had real strength and no peace. He had taken lives, and the guilt consumed him. So he left and found a master, Marpa the translator, a teacher as tough as he was enlightened. Think Luke training with Yoda on Dagobah, only colder, harsher, and with zero shortcuts. Marpa didn't give him wisdom. He gave him labor. Build a tower, then tear it down. Again and again. In blistering heat and freezing winds, Milarepa dragged stones until his hands cracked and his body gave out. Only when he had nothing left did the real training begin. He went deep into the Himalayas, alone, to caves near Lapchi, where most people can't even breathe. That's when the unbelievable stories began. Pilgrims say they saw him levitating just above the ground. His body gave off so much heat, it melted snow around him, even in blizzards. He used a real yogic practice called tummo, controlling body heat with breath and focus, like a Jedi mastering the Force in solitude. He didn't eat food, only wild nettles. His skin turned green, and when intruders came near his cave, he sealed the entrance with a massive hexagonal rock, not with muscle, but with telekinesis, a real-life force push. The boulder is still there. Locals near Lapchi show it to this day. Some caves also display his handprints in stone, as if his energy changed the rock itself. But Milarepa's greatest power wasn't physical. It was spiritual. In Buddhist tradition, reaching full enlightenment usually takes many lifetimes. Milarepa did it in one. He began to sing teachings, live from memory. Songs about pain, ego, and letting go. It wasn't poetry. It was transmission, like the Force moving through a conduit. He spent his final years wandering barefoot in rags, sharing what he had learned. And when the time came to die, he knew. He told his students in advance. Then sat down and left his body on his own terms in 1135 at age 83. From dark magic to light, from revenge to peace, from broken boy to Jedi-like master. He didn't just use the Force, he became one with it. If you thought the mighty Milarepa was powerful, wait until you meet the mystic who trained entire civilizations to fight their demons and win. They called him Guru Rinpoche, the precious master, but his real name was Padmasambhava. According to Tibetan records, he didn't just meditate in silence. He confronted spiritual darkness head-on and bent it to his will. Born in 8th century India, likely in the region of Udayana, now part of modern-day Pakistan or Afghanistan, Padmasambhava wasn't a prophet by birthright. He was said to have emerged from a lotus flower on a lake, fully formed, radiating light. A symbolic story. But the life that followed was no myth. He traveled through India, mastering Tantra and advanced yogic sciences, and eventually brought Vajrayana Buddhism to Tibet, not with sermons, but with power. The local people believed their land was haunted by violent nature spirits, elemental beings who tormented practitioners and corrupted minds. Padmasambhava faced them directly, and instead of destroying them, he transformed them. Using ritual, mantra, and presence alone, he bound these forces into protectors of the Dharma. In Jedi terms, imagine someone who tames the dark side and assigns it guard duty. His siddhis were profound and well documented in Tibetan lore. He could fly through the air, lagima, appear in multiple places simultaneously, and travel instantly across vast distances, prakamya. And he could do real Jedi mind tricks. He used vashitva, the power to influence minds and forces. But instead of manipulating, he awakened. One of his most mysterious acts was the creation of termas, spiritual texts and objects hidden throughout the Himalayas. Not just physically hidden, psychically sealed. He encoded these teachings to be discovered by future generations at the moment they'd be most needed. A spiritual time capsule, a Jedi holocron. Some of his caves still exist. There is a real-life Jedi temple. In Paro Taktsang, also known as the Tiger's Nest Monastery, legends say he flew in on a tigress and meditated for 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. The site became one of the most revered places in the Buddhist world, glowing with the same energy he left behind. One term in Vajrayana for a highly awakened being is Vajra, thunderbolt. Padmasambhava didn't just teach wisdom, he struck with it. Unlike Milarepa, who represents personal redemption, Padmasambhava was a force multiplier. He planted teachings that would awaken millions. And according to prophecy, he's not done. Some masters believe he still exists, not in body, but in subtle form, guiding advanced practitioners from beyond time, not as a ghost, but as a current of mind, a living transmission, a ripple in the force, still moving. Now meet the man who could be seen in 2 places at once, without ever standing up. Born in 1879, they called him Ramana Maharshi. He never traveled. He never started a movement. But he worked his magic from the oldest spiritual beacon on Earth, a sacred mountain in southern India said to radiate divine energy since the dawn of time. Its name, Arunachala. For thousands of years, sages have called it the heart of Shiva, the still point of the world. And people came by the thousands from every corner of the world, not for teachings, not for blessings, just to sit near him. And something strange kept happening. A man tormented by panic attacks for 20 years sat near Ramana for 10 minutes and walked out in peace. A woman came in grief. Ramana looked at her, said nothing, and she began sobbing, then laughing, then sat completely still for hours. Some described a psychic pressure in the room. Others called it the disappearance of time. They weren't hallucinating. They weren't high. They were doctors, writers, lawyers, and they left without the fears they came in with. One of them was a French psychiatrist, Dr. Jacques Latremoilière. He described Ramana's presence as more transformative than years of analysis. He didn't come back to interview him. He came back to sit in silence. Some called it presence, others called it power. Now here's the part that's harder to explain. People claimed they saw Ramana in two places at once, teaching inside the ashram while walking through the hills, guiding them in dreams before they even knew who he was. These weren't one-off stories. They were documented, written down, verified. By location, a yogic siddhi, a Jedi trait. He never talked about it, but when asked directly, he didn't deny it. He just smiled. Only later did people learn how he got that way. At 16, Ramana had a sudden, overwhelming fear that he was about to die. But instead of running, he laid down, closed his eyes, and let it happen. Breath slowed, body still, and then a realization. The part of him that was watching the death wasn't dying. It was awake, untouched, and infinite. He called it the self, not a soul, not an ego, but the unchanging awareness behind all experience. After that, he walked away from home, never said goodbye, and made his way to Arunachala. He stayed there for over 5 decades, never straying more than a few miles from the mountain. He didn't preach. He didn't build an empire. He just sat, and the force didn't just move through him. It settled around him like a field. Another man reported entering the hall to ask a question and forgot the question entirely. He sat for hours, overwhelmed by stillness, then left without a word. A group of students once asked if he ever performed miracles. He replied, "Why be impressed by a man who can fly? Birds do that every day." And another time he said, "The mind is only a bundle of thoughts. Stop thinking and show me the mind." When his health began to fail in 1950, devotees begged him not to leave. They wept at his feet. They pleaded with him to stay. He smiled gently and said, "They say I'm going, but where could I go?" He died shortly after, on April 14th, at the age of 70. That night, a blazing comet streaked across the sky. Eyewitnesses said it curved and vanished behind Arunachala, just like him. The Jedi had Yoda, India had Ramana, and the Force had a body for a little while. Around the year 14 CE, Jesus spent 18 difficult years in Tibet, Nepal, and India. Not as a preacher, not as a prophet, but as a student. He wasn't the Messiah yet. He was a dark-skinned teenager from Roman Judea, traveling east on calloused feet. Monks at Hemis Monastery, in today's Ladakh, northern India, welcomed a man named Issa, barefoot, unknown, but determined. And so began Jesus' training. Breath control, mantra, holding stillness through pain. Then he crossed into Lumbini in southern Nepal, the birthplace of the Buddha, where monks trained him to dissolve thought, empty the ego, and sit for days without flinching. Years passed, and slowly, he was becoming the miracle worker we know from the Bible. He traveled south to Puri, on the eastern coast of India, where he debated Brahmin priests, face to face, in open temple courtyards. From there, he walked on foot to Ragir, once home to the Buddha, then reached Jagannath Temple, where he underwent complex Vedic initiations, sacred rites reserved for the most disciplined seekers. Some accounts even place him in Bodh Gaya, meditating for 6 months beneath the very Bodhi tree where Buddha awakened. He wasn't sightseeing, he was training, sleeping on stone floors, fasting for days, memorizing sacred verses in Pali, Sanskrit, and Tibetan. No luxury, no shortcuts, just fire, silence, and sweat. By the time he returned to Judea around 29 CE, he wasn't just a carpenter's son. With 15 grueling years of daily meditation, reading, and chores behind his back, Jesus emerged with real Jedi powers. The miracles came next. A woman who had been bleeding for 12 years touched his robe in a crowd and was instantly healed. That's not a metaphor. It's recorded in Mark 5:25-29. When a violent storm hit the Sea of Galilee in Israel, he stood and said, "Peace, be still." The wind stopped instantly. That's in Mark 4:39. When he turned water into wine at Cana, again in Israel, it wasn't symbolism. It was prakamya, the yogic power to alter matter. And when he brought Lazarus back from the dead after 4 days, that was prana pratyavartana, the return of life force. These weren't parlor tricks. They were siddhis, abilities gained through suffering, study, and total control of energy. And when people asked how he did it, he didn't boast. He said, "The Father within me does the work." Not ego, not magic, just alignment with the source. And before he left this world, he said something that should stop everyone in their tracks. "You will do greater things than I have done." John 14:12. Let that sink in. He raised the dead, calmed the weather, transmuted elements, and told his students they'd go beyond him. That wasn't modesty. That was a transmission, a code. The Jedi path didn't end with Jesus. It started with him. On November 27, 1861, the most powerful being to ever walk the earth appeared before an accountant. His name was Lahiri Mahasaya, a quiet government clerk sent on assignment to Dunagiri, a mountainous region in northern India. He wandered alone into the forest, and that's when he saw him. A radiant man with golden skin and copper-colored hair, seated in perfect stillness, as if carved from light. He said his name was Babaji, not a guru, not a prophet, a Mahavatar, a deathless being who had walked the earth for centuries, mastering every element and appearing only to those who were ready. That day, Babaji gave Lahiri the ancient science of Kriya Yoga, a powerful method for controlling life force, breath, and karma itself. It had been lost for over 1,000 years, and now it was time to bring it back, quietly, privately, through lineage, not fame. Lahiri taught it in whispers. His disciple Yogananda, who later became an icon in India, brought it to the world. But Babaji never stepped into the spotlight. He remained in the shadows, and in doing so, became a legend. Not long after Lahiri's encounter, more stories emerged, whispered, recorded, passed down like sacred code. One night, as the group sat around a mountain fire, Babaji reached into the flames and pulled out a burning log. Without hesitation, he pressed it to a disciple's bare shoulder. The man screamed. The others lunged to stop him, but Babaji remained still, calm. Then he said, "I have freed you tonight from a painful death. The karmic law has been satisfied." With one hand, he had burned away the disciple's fate. With the other, he healed the wound instantly, leaving only a faint scar, a signature. That night, karma bent to his will. On another occasion, a man climbed the cliffs to find him, desperate to become a student. Babaji refused. "You're not ready," he said. The man fell to his knees, trembling, then stood. "If I can't be your student, I'll jump." Babaji didn't flinch. He simply said, "Jump then." The man did. His body was shattered. Babaji had it retrieved, laid a single hand on his chest, and brought the corpse back to life. "Now," he said, smiling, "you are ready. Death will not touch you again." The other disciples stood in stunned silence. And these weren't ordinary seekers. Babaji kept a hidden circle of master yogis, hand-picked, scattered across lifetimes, and known only to each other. The best of the best, disciples who had already crossed lifetimes of practice, gathered by a being who walked between worlds. After the resurrection, Babaji turned to the group and said simply, "Dera danda uthao," pack your belongings. And in the blink of an eye, they were gone. teleported. Not in spirit, in body. Another night, Babaji saw a thought arise in Lahiri's mind, a subtle desire left unspoken, a golden palace. Babaji said nothing, but the next morning, the disciples awoke inside it. A palace of light stood where wilderness had been, walls glowing, towers of gold, floors that hummed with energy. Lahiri stared, stunned. Babaji walked beside him and said only, "Do not get attached." By dawn, the palace was gone. Not destroyed, dissolved, lesson complete. Even desire itself was just another training ground. And if you tried to find Babaji again the next day, you might fail, because he doesn't always look the same. Centuries earlier, he appeared to the philosopher Shankara, one of the greatest minds in Indian history. He initiated Shankara into Kriya Yoga, planting seeds that would echo through non-dual philosophy for centuries. He's been seen as a radiant youth with flowing copper hair, an old hermit in rags, a wandering pilgrim. Even as someone the seeker already knew, he can take any form, appear in any dream, speak in any voice. Sometimes, all it takes is a glance. One word from Babaji has reportedly sent people into silence for years, not because he hypnotizes, because he transmits, like a tuning fork that strikes the soul. Despite his power, Babaji never built an ashram. He never gathered crowds. He didn't want followers. He wanted masters. And that's why he stayed hidden. According to Yogananda, Babaji has been in communion with Jesus for centuries. Not symbolically, literally. Two beings working from different traditions, broadcasting the same signal. One through love, the other through breath. Babaji doesn't care what religion you follow. He appears only when the soul is ready, and vanishes the moment ego returns. His instructions are quiet, his presence unmistakable. In the Himalayas, there are still stories. A man seen in caves, young, glowing, silent. Some say he's a myth. But for those who've seen him, Babaji is more real than anything else. He doesn't age, sleep, or die. He's not here to be followed. He's here to test the few who are ready. And if you are, he'll appear. Not to save you, but to see what you've become. The Force didn't make him what he is. He became its guardian, the final Jedi. These weren't myths. They were men who trained, suffered, wandered, and returned with something real. They didn't escape the world. They mastered it. Milarepa, Padmasambhava, Ramana, Jesus, Babaji, different paths, same current. And perhaps it's in the cards for you. Just keep an eye on the archive for tools to refine your force, field, and frequency. You've seen the path. Now you know where to look.